Hello, and welcome to another edition of 5 Minute Features. In this one, we're going to be talking about something a little different. We're going to be talking about Workload Identity Federation. And what is that, you might ask? So, when you are deploying your workloads in Databricks, you have the opportunity to deploy them through service principals. And that's great. But there's absolutely no need for you to set up service principals with a user ID and a secret and use that to deploy your workloads because you can use Workload Identity Federation instead. What I like to think of it is basically the way that the face scan works on your phone, right? So what it does, instead of you saying, all right, but I have the username and password, am I allowed to deploy something? Instead of that, it actually verifies who you are at the given time when you try to deploy it. And what you can do is you can also combine it with environments. So I've done a short demo. I'm going to show it to you in Azure. And then if you want a little bit more of the details, I've also done a bit of a write-up on it where we go through the examples a little bit more in depth. Because this is like a slightly different topic than what we're used to. So on the Enter portal, I've set up a service principal, basically an app registration. And what I've done is I've gone to certificates and secrets, and I've basically created these federated credentials. So there's a federated credential for dev, test, and prod. They're scoped specifically to the environment, to the specific repo. So what you'll see here is scoped to my repo. It's scoped to the specific project in my repo, and this one is scoped to the environment dev, which means that if anybody else tries to use this same service principal and that same federated credential for anything else, it's basically going to say that they're not authorized to do so. So this credential only works for my repo, my project, and for the correct environment. If we go to the GitHub side of things, I've set up three environments. I've only actually set up the variables in one of them. But in here, basically just a GitHub environment. Down here, I have my Azure Client ID, my tenant ID. They're not stored as secrets because they're not, in fact, secret. They are just environment variables, right? So they're stored here in plain text. This also allows us to, if something's going wrong, we can actually see the IDs, we can see the identities, and we can use them to debug. So that's really nice. The actual pipeline itself, maybe we should just dig into it really quickly. But it's a standard DApp deployment I've done. This is the DApp. There's nothing special in that. Inside of here, we have a GitHub workflow that's called Deploy Databricks. And I think the important thing here is actually maybe just to notice on the wrapper here that we have these permissions. So this ID token write and read, that's basically what allows you to exchange the token between Azure and GitHub. And then it has a single job for now, so it's calling this deployment pipeline. Inside of the deployment pipeline, we have a couple of steps. Basically, the first one is we do a checkout. I think that's pretty standard. We set up the Databricks CLI, and then we authenticate to Azure. So we use the client ID and the tenant ID that we had in the variables. We set allow no subscriptions to true, so we don't have to pass the subscription ID. Oh, sorry. And then we basically just call a validate bundle and a deploy bundle. And you might think, well, why are we setting up the Databricks CLI but only authenticating to Azure? But basically what happens under the hood is actually the token gets exchanged again. So it gets exchanged between Azure and GitHub, and it verifies if we have access. And then it's actually inherited directly to the Databricks CLI, so we don't have to actually log in again. How it looks when we then run it, you can see I've done it here as a success. So it's running the Azure CLI login here, and you can actually see the subject claim specifically right here. So it says, I am coming from this GitHub account. I'm coming from this repo, and I'm coming from this environment in particular. And I'm wishing to do this Azure AD token exchange, which is what we've set up. And it'll actually also reference the entire workflow. Then it's going to be using this OIDC, and it does that successfully. And in the end, you can see over here on the Databricks side, I mean, there's nothing in this bundle, so it's not that interesting. But you can just to verify that we actually have some artifacts in here. No, sorry, there's no artifacts in there. There is some files in here. There's a notebook. It's called Hello World. and there's pretty much nothing special about that. It just says I'm deployed via GitHub Actions. We are Workload Identity Federation. So if you're the kind of person who's still using service principals with secrets stored in key vaults or stored in GitHub, like in your GitHub secrets or in your Azure Key Vault, it's simply not necessary. I would highly recommend you set up a Workload Identity Federation. That also leaves you less vulnerable for somebody getting a hold of your secret, or the fact that you should probably rotate your secrets every now and then. And if you forget to do so, or if you forget to update wherever you do this, you might end up with a broken pipeline. None of that happens if you just use Workload Identity Federation. So big ups from here, and thank you very much to the person who sent in this tip for having a video on this. So until next time, have a great day.